The dragon in the barn. The wind howled across the empty fields. It was just after sunset, and the sky was dark with thick gray clouds. Ethan, a quiet man with rough hands and tired eyes, was locking up his tool shed for the night. He lived alone on a small farm far from the city. He liked the silence, the slow days, and the sound of crickets when the world went still. But tonight felt different. As he turned toward his house, a loud crash echoed through the storm. It didn't sound like thunder. It was deeper, heavier, and closer. Something had fallen behind the barn. Ethan froze. He looked back toward the noise. The barn stood tall and silent, its doors swaying slightly in the wind. He grabbed his flashlight and slowly walked toward it. His boots squished in the muddy ground as the rain started to fall harder. When he reached the back of the barn, he found something he had never seen before. It was huge. A long silver body, covered in torn, glowing scales, lay in the mud. Large wings, one broken, twitched as the creature tried to move. Its head turned toward Ethan, and he saw eyes that didn't look like anything from this world. They glowed soft blue, filled with pain. The creature was breathing heavily. Every breath made a strange whistling sound. A dragon. At least, that's what it looked like to him. Ethan stepped back, heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what to do. He had seen strange animals before, but this was something else. It wasn't just an animal. It was alien. The dragon looked at him and made a low, soft sound. Not a roar, not a growl. It sounded like a plea. Ethan looked into its eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't wild. They were tired, afraid. It was like looking into the eyes of someone lost in a storm, begging not to be left alone. "You're hurt," Ethan whispered, even though he knew it couldn't understand him. The dragon lowered its head. Its body shook. Ethan took a deep breath. His hands were still trembling, but he moved closer. Slowly, carefully. When he reached the dragon's side, he saw deep cuts along its legs and belly. Metal wires stuck out of its skin. Its blood wasn't red. It shimmered like liquid light. He looked back toward his farmhouse, then to the barn. "Come on," he said gently. "You can't stay out here." The dragon didn't move. Ethan grabbed an old tarp from the barn and wrapped it around the creature's broken wing. He didn't know if it helped, but he wanted to do something. Then he rolled an old wheelbarrow over and filled it with frozen meat from his shed. It was all he had left in the freezer. Deer, rabbit, some cuts of old cow meat. He placed it all near the dragon's head. It sniffed the food, then ate, slowly, carefully. Ethan watched from a few feet away, rain dripping down his face. He didn't know what kind of creature it was. He didn't know if others were coming. But something inside him said this dragon wasn't his enemy. After it ate, the dragon tried to crawl forward. It dragged itself with one arm, breathing heavily. It was trying to get into the barn. Ethan ran forward, opened the doors wide, and cleared a space inside. Hay, tools, old blankets. He pushed them all to the side. The dragon crawled in, groaning with pain, then collapsed in the corner. Ethan stood in silence. His heart still beat fast. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. He couldn't just walk away. He brought more blankets and laid them over the creature's back. He found his first aid kit and tried to clean the wounds he could reach. The dragon didn't stop him. It watched him with those glowing blue eyes, and he felt something pass between them. Not words, not thoughts, just a feeling. Trust. As the storm rolled on outside, Ethan stayed by its side. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in a wooden chair beside the barn wall, flashlight by his feet, and a hot cup of coffee in his hands. Every few minutes, he looked over at the creature to make sure it was still breathing. "What are you?" he whispered once, just to break the silence. The dragon opened one eye but said nothing. In the early morning, the rain stopped. The wind died down. Birds began to sing again. Ethan stood up, stretched, and walked out into the morning light. Then the ground began to shake. Not softly. He turned his head toward the sky and froze. Something was coming. Large shadows passed over his field, the sky filled with strange shapes, sharp, silent crafts glowing with blue fire. They moved in perfect lines, heading straight for his farm. Ethan took one step back. The wind from the ships pushed against his face. Then the first ship landed. He realized something terrifying. They weren't just looking for her. They had found him too. Her army lands. The sun had barely broken through the gray clouds when Ethan heard the second tremor. It wasn't like thunder. It was heavier, steadier, and it moved the earth beneath his feet. He stood at the edge of his porch, his eyes locked on the sky. The strange ships that hovered above his fields were nothing like anything humans had built. They didn't make the whirring sounds of helicopters or the roars of fighter jets. They were silent, almost graceful, like floating stones with glowing veins running through their hulls. One of the ships lowered slowly, steam hissing from its sides, as it touched down just beyond his cornfield. The dirt split beneath its weight, crops flattening in waves. From its belly, a ramp unfolded with a soft, humming sound. Ethan's legs refused to move. The only thing louder than the engines was the sound of his own heartbeat. Part of him wanted to run back into the house, lock the doors, grab the old shotgun from behind the kitchen shelf. But something told him that no human weapon would help him now. He stepped down from the porch. The barn stood quiet behind him, where the wounded alien dragon still rested. He could feel her presence, even though she hadn't made a sound since sunrise. He didn't know her name or why she was here, but he had protected her. And now something had come because of that choice. They marched out of the ship in rows. At first glance, they looked like tall armored statues, broad-shouldered, glowing with pale light through their armor's cracks. Their weapons were strange, shaped like curved bones fused with metal, and they moved with sharp precision. Ethan had never seen soldiers like these. They weren't human, and they didn't walk like they were strangers to war. There were dozens of them. They didn't speak, not at first. They spread across the farm in silent formation. Some scanned the trees, others pointed their weapons at the house, the fields, and finally, the barn. "Hey," Ethan called out, his voice weak and dry. "Don't. She's hurt. She's not." They didn't turn to him. One figure stepped forward from the group. This one didn't wear a helmet. Their face was narrow, alien, with smooth purple skin and white markings like scars across the cheeks. Their eyes glowed pale silver. They raised a hand, and the others froze. "You are the human who touched her," the leader said, voice deep and smooth, though a strange translator box on their chest made the words sound metallic. "You fed her. You kept her alive." Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. He nodded slowly. The leader tilted their head, studying him like a puzzle. "Do you know who she is?" they asked. He shook his head. "No. I found her. She was hurt. I couldn't leave her out there." The leader turned to the barn and raised a hand. The doors opened with a hiss of unseen power. From the shadows inside, the silver-scaled dragon stirred. Her head rose slowly, eyes narrowing against the sudden light. Her wounds were still healing, but her presence filled the air with pressure, like the heat before lightning. Her wings twitched, tail curling protectively around her body. And when she looked at the alien soldiers, her eyes changed. They burned gold for a moment. Then she spoke, not in human language, but her voice echoed through their helmets and into Ethan's mind. "Do not harm him." The soldiers didn't move. "He is under my protection," she continued, more forcefully now. "He is mine." Ethan blinked, unsure of what that last word meant. Hers, like a pet, a servant, or something more. The leader bowed their head. "General Visha, your orders are ours to follow, but you are wounded, and the enemy is coming." Visha stepped out of the barn, each footstep shaking the ground slightly. The scales on her chest and neck shimmered in the morning light. Ethan hadn't seen her stand until now. She was taller than he thought, easily the size of a large truck. But she moved like a dancer, graceful despite her injuries. "Prepare defenses," she said. "They will not find me weak, and they will not harm this world." The soldiers saluted her, some by kneeling, others by pressing fists to their chests. Ethan watched as the entire field transformed in a matter of hours. Strange machines unfolded from the ships, metal towers that extended like growing trees, drilling into the earth and scanning the skies. Floating drones hovered around the property, mapping every inch of land. Soldiers dug trenches through his fields, set up energy shields along the fences, and turned his quiet, peaceful farm into a war zone. Yet Visha stayed close to Ethan. She walked beside him in the field later that day, the golden sun casting shadows over her silver form. "Why did you save me?" she asked, her voice now gentle, almost sad. Ethan looked at her. "Because you needed help." "But you didn't know me," she said. "I could have killed you. I still could." He gave a tired smile. "I've seen injured birds, wolves with broken legs. They all look the same when they're in pain. I don't need to know what you are to care." Visha stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes flickered, something like a glow behind them. "Your kind surprises me." They stood in silence, watching the sky. Then Visha whispered something barely audible, more to herself than to him. "The legend said it would be like this. The moment we met one of them, a seed would awaken." Ethan turned to her. "What seed?" But Visha didn't answer. Behind them, in the distance, the sky was beginning to darken again. But this time, it wasn't rain. Ships were coming. And they weren't hers. The storm before the war. Night returned with a strange silence, the kind that didn't belong in the countryside. No crickets, no wind, not even the usual creak of the old barn door. Ethan sat on the front steps of his farmhouse, staring out at what used to be his field. It was gone now, flattened, carved up by glowing trenches and armored patrols. Metal towers hummed low across the landscape, casting a dull blue light that made everything look like a dream. He held a warm cup of tea in his hands, but he didn't drink it. He just sat there, trying to remember what peace felt like. Only 2 days ago, his biggest concern had been whether or not the rain would flood the lower corn rows. Now his farm was a fortress. Alien machines walked through his pastures like they owned the land. Soldiers from another world stood watch over his property, their strange eyes scanning the sky for threats he couldn't even see. Visha stood in the open, her silver wings folded at her sides. Her body still bore the marks of battle, faded burns, and long, healing scars. But there was strength in her posture now. She moved with confidence again, like a leader who had returned from the edge of death. The soldiers around her never spoke unless spoken to. They obeyed with a kind of discipline Ethan had never seen in any military on Earth. He watched her from a distance, unsure of what he felt. Fear, curiosity, maybe both. When she noticed him, she walked over, her large clawed feet silent on the dirt. Her tail curled slightly behind her, and her golden eyes reflected the light from the defense towers. "You are not sleeping," she said, not as a question, but as a fact. Ethan shook his head. "Can't. Not with all this." He gestured toward the field. "This was my home. Now it's a battlefield." Visha sat beside him, her body lowering slowly so as not to crush the wooden steps. She was too big for the porch, but she made it work. "Your kindness brought war to your home. I regret that." He gave a weak smile. "Would you rather I had left you in the mud?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the stars. They were brighter out here, away from the city. Ethan had always loved the sky, but now it felt like it was watching him. "My people are not used to kindness without a purpose," she finally said. "When someone gives, they expect something in return. But you gave because it was right. That changes things." Ethan sipped the tea, then sighed. "So why are you really here? I mean, what brought you to Earth?" Vaisha looked down. Her voice softened. I was running. He blinked. A general. Running. Yes, she said. From a war we are losing. From an enemy that doesn't sleep, doesn't feel, doesn't stop. The machines, she paused. They are not just weapons. They were made to destroy weakness. And to them, compassion is weakness. Ethan's brow furrowed. So they came after you because you showed mercy. Because I hesitated, she said. And because of a prophecy. He tilted his head. Prophecy. Vaisha turned to him fully now. Her golden eyes were serious. A long time ago, before my kind rose to power, our ancestors spoke of a time when we would meet a race from the stars. A simple race. Soft, slow, fragile, but carrying something powerful inside. Something that could unlock what we have forgotten. Something that could change everything. Ethan frowned. And you think, that's us, humans. She nodded. They called it the seed. Not a real one, not something you can hold, but something inside your people. A spark. Maybe it's kindness. Maybe it's hope. Or maybe something deeper. And you think I have it, Ethan said quietly. I don't know, Vaisha whispered. But when you touched me, when you cared, something changed in me. My body healed faster. My strength returned beyond what should have been possible. My blood reacted. He stared at his hands. I didn't do anything special. You did everything special, she said. You gave without fear. The wind returned, rushing past them with a soft sigh. But this wind carried something new. An unnatural scent, sharp and metallic. Soldiers called out in their language. Alarms began to hum. The machines had picked up a signal. The enemy was near. Vaisha stood at once, her body glowing faintly. They're coming. Ethan stood too, setting down the tea. How close? Too close, she said. From the forest beyond the fields, distant lights flickered, red and cold. The sky began to darken, not from clouds, but from shadows moving fast. Ethan's heart raced. You need to leave, Vaisha said, turning to him. This is my home, Ethan said. It's no longer safe. He looked out at the land, now covered in alien weapons and soldiers. It hasn't been safe since you landed here. And I didn't leave then. Vaisha stared at him for a long time. Then, for the first time, she gave a small nod of respect. Then stay close, and do not lose hope. As the darkness rolled over the fields, and the enemy lights grew closer, Ethan realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a battle for his farm. It was a battle for something older. Something inside him. Something he hadn't even known was there. They want his blood. The next morning didn't feel like morning at all. The sun rose behind thick smoke, turning the sky a sickly orange. It was hard to tell what time it was. The scent of burning metal hung in the air, and a strange quiet had settled over the land. No birds, no wind, only the low, steady hum of alien machines waiting for orders. Ethan sat at the edge of the field, watching the ruins of his old tractor, now crushed under the weight of some alien scanner tower. Sleep had not come to him last night. After the alerts, after the glow of the enemy ships on the horizon, nothing had happened. Not yet. Just a stillness that stretched too long. But it wasn't peace. It was the calm before something worse. Behind him, the barn doors creaked open. Vaisha stepped out, her scales looking darker now, like polished silver stained with ash. Her wings were folded neatly at her sides, but he could see new markings on her body, glowing lines that hadn't been there before. They pulsed faintly, as if responding to something inside her. We received a message, she said without greeting. A high council ship is approaching. Ethan turned to her. More of your people? Yes, she replied. They heard about me. And about you. That last part made the back of his neck prickle. He stood slowly, brushing dirt from his hands. What do they want? Vaisha didn't answer. Instead, she looked up at the sky, where a small dot had begun to grow. Fast, and too precise to be anything human. The ship descended like a falling star, then stopped midair, hovering just above the field. It was sleeker than the others, almost like a long black spear with no engines, no sound. It didn't land. It simply opened. A platform lowered, revealing 3 tall figures, dressed in layered robes that shimmered like water. No armor, no weapons, just eyes that shined like frost. Cold, sharp, ancient. Ethan could feel their gaze before they even spoke. They walked with perfect silence, their robes untouched by wind or dust. When they reached the edge of the barn, one of them raised a hand. A small device floated into the air between them and Visha. It projected symbols Ethan couldn't read, but Visha understood. The conversation began in their language, rapid and sharp. No translation device, just tension. Words like knives. Ethan watched Visha's face harden. Finally, one of the council members turned to him. The device crackled and translated in a soft, emotionless voice. "You are human. You are untrained. You are dangerous." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "I'm a farmer. You are more. You carry a potential that should not exist. And now the general has awakened it." Visha stepped forward, her tail slapping the ground. "He saved my life. I made my choice." "You had no right," the voice replied. "He must be taken, tested, isolated, for the safety of all species involved." Ethan took a step back. "You're not taking me anywhere." They didn't move. They didn't need to. "Ethan," Visha said quietly. "They mean it. They will not ask again." "What do they want with me?" "Your blood," she said. "They want to study it, to tear it apart. Because what's inside you, it's reacting to us, to our biology, to our systems, like some kind of virus." Ethan asked. "No," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, like a cure. The silence between them deepened. Even the soldiers nearby stopped moving. Ethan took another step back. "No, I didn't ask for this. I don't even know what it means." "Neither do they," Visha said. "And that's why they're afraid." The council moved slightly closer. "Human, your life is small. Your death would be informative. We offer you the chance to give it meaning." "That's not a choice," Ethan snapped. Visha suddenly stood between him and the council, her wings spread, her body glowing faintly. "He is under my protection," she growled. "Then you defy the council," they said coldly. "You know what that means." Visha didn't flinch. "I know exactly what it means." The council turned without another word. Their ship retracted the platform, and they vanished back into the sky, leaving only silence behind. Ethan sat down on the porch, hands shaking. "They wanted to take me apart like some lab rat." Visha knelt beside him. "You are more than they understand. You are something new." "I didn't ask to be," Ethan said. "Neither did I," she replied. "But fate doesn't ask." She reached out, claws gentle, and touched his chest, right over his heart. A soft warmth spread through his skin. He gasped, feeling something stir beneath the surface of his body, like fire, but not burning, like light trying to break free. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "What they feared," she said. "Connecting our lives. Your blood and mine." The glow between them pulsed once, then faded. "They will come back," she said. "Not to ask, but to take. And when they do," she looked up at the darkening sky, "we must be ready to show them what your blood can do." First strike at dawn. The attack didn't begin with a sound. It began with silence. A silence so thick that Ethan woke from his restless sleep before anything had happened. He sat up in the barn's makeshift bed, blinking into darkness, heart pounding for no reason he could name. No machines hummed. No alien sentries moved. Even the ever-present buzz of the defense towers was gone. The world had paused. Then the sky exploded. A flash of white light tore across the night like a blade, turning the shadows to fire. The ground shook with the force of a falling mountain. And then came the sound, deafening, thunder without end. A tower to the east, one of the main energy barriers, vanished in a wave of flames and dirt. Ethan rolled off the cot and scrambled to his feet. His ears rang. Outside, chaos had already begun. Alien soldiers shouted in a language he couldn't understand. Blasts of blue and red light streaked across the fields. Machines he had never seen before dropped from the sky, long-legged insect-like things that tore through the cornfields, ignoring everything but their targets. He burst out of the barn just as a second tower went down. Vaisha was already in the air, her silver body glowing with power. She dove through the smoke and fire, tearing one of the enemy machines apart with her claws. Her roar echoed over the battlefield, not wild, not desperate, controlled and sharp, like a blade slicing through fear. This was no longer the broken, wounded creature he had saved. This was a commander, a weapon. And yet she kept looking back toward him. Ethan ran toward the main trench where Allied forces were regrouping. An alien soldier pulled him behind a shield just as a blast of plasma scorched the ground nearby. The heat was blinding. The field smelled of burning crops and scorched metal. "They're everywhere," someone shouted. They came through the jump tear. A map flickered to life on a screen nearby. It showed dozens of red dots, enemy signatures, pressing in from all directions. The defenses were falling faster than expected. They had been preparing for war, but the machines, they had prepared for Ethan. And then something even stranger happened. As he ducked behind the shield wall, a piece of a broken drone skidded to his feet, half sparking, its body twitching with dying energy. It shouldn't have worked. Its core was shattered, its signal broken. But it spoke. Not through speakers, not out loud. In his mind, a cold, crackling voice filled his thoughts, whispering like ice against his bones. "You are the seed, the anomaly, the key." Ethan gasped and clutched his head, staggering. "We do not fear your people. We fear what your kindness can awaken." The voice vanished just as fast as it had come, leaving only pain and confusion behind. He looked up, and Vaisha was there, landing beside him, wings outstretched like a shield. "They contacted you, didn't they?" she said, her breath heavy. "I felt it." He nodded, still dazed. "They called me the seed. What does that mean?" She looked at him with eyes that held centuries of war. "It means they're not just here to destroy us. They're here to destroy you." More machines landed nearby. One fired at Vaisha, but her tail whipped through the air and struck it down. She stood protectively over Ethan, panting from the effort. "You need to get underground," she said. "There's a safe tunnel." "No," he said, standing shakily. "I'm not hiding." "You're not a soldier." "I'm not a lab rat either," he said. "You said there was something inside me. Something they want to erase. Maybe it's time I stop running from it." Vaisha looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "Then come," she said. "If you're the seed, we make them fear what grows from it." Together they moved through the battlefield. Soldiers rallied around Vaisha, fighting harder with every order she gave. Ethan followed, dodging plasma and fire, watching as the enemy kept trying to get close to him, but never to her. They didn't want her anymore. They wanted him. The machines didn't shoot to kill him. They tried to trap him, pull him away, isolate him. And every time they did, something inside Ethan lit up, like a pulse, a flare of heat in his chest that made the machines hesitate, glitch, stumble. He noticed it the third time it happened. A drone had him pinned against a wall, spinning its limbs to deliver a killing strike, but it paused. It twitched, its lights flickered. And then, without touching it, Ethan felt it collapse. Vaisha arrived seconds later, her voice full of awe. "You did that." "I don't know how," Ethan said, still shaking. "Your blood, your energy, it's reaching out to them." She said, "You're not just a target. You're a signal, and you're changing them." Before they could say more, a new sound filled the sky. A different kind of ship. Larger, darker, and falling fast. Vaisha's eyes narrowed. "The Machine Queen," she whispered. "She's come to take you herself." Ethan stared up at the descending shadow. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid. He clenched his fists. Then let her try. The power inside. The Queen arrived like a falling moon. Her ship didn't just descend. It pushed the clouds aside, peeled the sky open with gravity that made the ground tremble. The battle froze. Both sides looked up. Even the alien soldiers around Ethan, who had followed Visha into countless wars, stopped firing. They had never seen her in person. Ethan had expected something huge and terrifying, a metal beast with claws and teeth, something born only to destroy. But when the Queen stepped out of her ship, she looked almost human. Tall, thin, silver like mercury. Her face smooth, featureless at first, until she chose to wear a face. One that looked eerily like his. It was no accident. She had studied him. Vaisha growled low beside him, her wings flaring. "Stay behind me." But Ethan didn't move. Something about the Queen pulled at him. Not fear, not awe, but recognition. Like hearing a song you didn't remember learning. The Queen's voice echoed through the air, not from her mouth, but into their minds, cool and sharp like glass breaking underwater. "You are the mistake that must be undone." Ethan stepped forward. "You mean me?" "You," she said, tilting her head. "Your kind. Your potential. Kindness that spreads like a disease. Weakness that blooms into strength. We have erased you from other timelines. Burned your seeds from other galaxies. But somehow here, you survived." Vaisha stood taller, placing a clawed hand on Ethan's chest as if to push him back. "You will not touch him." The Queen's eyes flickered. "You bonded with him." "Foolish. Now your code is contaminated too." Ethan looked between them, heart pounding. What does she mean? Vaisha didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, she said, "Your blood changed me, and when I chose to protect you, I crossed a line. I disobeyed everything I was made to follow, and something inside me evolved." The Queen raised a hand, and at once, the machines moved again. Hundreds. The sky filled with them. Long metal limbs, sharp wings, spinning eyes. They didn't fight like soldiers anymore. They moved like a net, closing in, not to kill, but to capture. Ethan felt it the moment they turned toward him. A pull, a pressure in his chest. He stumbled. His heartbeat slowed. But before he could fall, Visha was at his side. "There is one way to stop this." "Tell me," he gasped. "We bond fully," she said. "Merge our energy. Share blood. It is dangerous. It might kill us both. Or you become what they fear most." He looked at her, eyes wide. "And you?" "I've already chosen," she said. Then, without waiting, she slashed her palm open. Her blood spilled, silver, glowing, alive. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Do it." She drew a small blade from her side, hesitated only a second, then gently cut his palm. Their hands touched. The blood mixed, and everything changed. A flash of white light burst from their bodies, forcing even the Queen's soldiers to step back. Ethan screamed, not from pain, but from heat. His mind stretched wide, memories not his filling his thoughts. Stars, war, ancient words. He saw through Visha's eyes, her memories, her first battle, her childhood, her moment of betrayal, her shame, her hope. And she saw him, barefoot in his fields, laughing in the rain, watching his father repair an old fence. Kindness, simple and honest, not weakness, not naivety. Life. He opened his eyes, and the machines paused, their weapons lowered, some shaking. Ethan stood, glowing faint gold now, like his veins were filled with sunlight. Vaisha rose beside him, her body larger, stronger, her wings pulsing with raw energy. They were not separate now. They were one rhythm. The Queen stepped forward, frowning. "So be it," she said. And she attacked. A beam of pure energy blasted toward them. Ethan raised a hand, and the beam shattered. Not blocked. Shattered. It didn't make sense, not even to him. But he didn't care. He wasn't fighting with logic anymore. He was fighting with instinct, and something deep inside had awakened. Vaisha roared and charged. The battle began again. But this time, Ethan didn't need to run. He walked calmly through fire and smoke, and wherever he went, machines hesitated. Their programming twisted. Some even turned on their own, unsure of what they were supposed to do anymore. He didn't need weapons. He was the weapon. And Vaisha fought beside him, not as a guardian, not as a soldier, but as his equal. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. When the Machine Queen realized what she had created, it was already too late. They had become the very thing she feared most. A union of strength and mercy, of power and purpose, of evolution. And the storm was only just beginning. The fire of a new future. The Queen screamed, not with sound, but with vibration. Her shriek tore through the battlefield, cracking stone, distorting metal, and shaking the very bones of the earth. Machines fell to their knees. Others exploded midair, unable to handle the sudden surge of corrupted command signals. It was rage, panic, the scream of something that had never known fear until now. Ethan stood still at the center of the storm. The light in his body had grown brighter, but it wasn't wild or uncontrolled. It pulsed in harmony with Vaisha, who stood beside him like a living shield of silver and fire. Her wings now spanned wide over them both, pulsing with energy neither of them fully understood, but both accepted. The bond had changed everything. Ethan could feel her heartbeat in his chest, and she could hear his thoughts before he spoke them. They weren't just connected. They were fused in a way that transcended language or species. It was not romance. It was not ownership. It was unity. And through that unity, they had become something new. The Queen charged forward, her form shifting as she moved. Her body morphed and reformed with each step, blades where arms once were, wings where there had been none, and eyes multiplying across her face like a twisted god of war. She no longer looked human. The mask had dropped. Ethan met her with calm eyes. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't need to. His body glowed with the same golden fire that had scared her for so long. But now, it was stronger, clearer. It wasn't just light. It was memory. Every act of kindness, every gentle word, every decision to protect instead of destroy. It all lived in him, and it made him untouchable. Vaisha leaped before the Queen reached him, their clash sending a shockwave across the battlefield. Metal screamed, earth cracked, and the sky split open with the force of their collision. Ethan didn't stand back. He walked calmly into the fire. As the Queen raised her blade toward Vaisha's throat, Ethan placed his glowing hand on the Queen's shoulder and whispered, "You've already lost." The light spread instantly, through his palm, into her body, into her code. She tried to pull away, but her limbs froze, her body locked in place, trapped not by force, but by memory. The connection brought back everything she had worked to erase. A small boy giving a flower to a dying alien. A soldier refusing to fire on an enemy who had surrendered. A human doctor using simple tools to heal a dying child of another world. Acts of mercy. Acts of love. The seed was never about war. It was about hope. And the Queen, built to purge weakness, couldn't survive it. She shrieked one last time, and her body began to crack, not from impact, but from the inside. Like her very code was breaking apart. Glowing lines split across her form, and in seconds she burst into radiant shards, scattered like ash in a beam of light. The battlefield went still. No machine moved. Then, one by one, they powered down. Some collapsed, others simply stood, their red eyes turning dim, no longer held by her will. The war had ended, not with fire, not with blood, but with a touch. Vaisha landed beside Ethan, her body scorched, but her eyes alive. "It's over," she said, almost in disbelief. Ethan nodded. Not just the battle. The war. Around them, the alien soldiers knelt, not to worship, not in fear, but in respect. They had seen something impossible. A farmer with no weapons, no army, no power, had changed the fate of galaxies. As the sun rose, golden and warm, the farm looked nothing like it had before. Buildings were destroyed. Fields were scorched. Machines lay scattered like bones of forgotten beasts. But something was growing in the soil. Where Ethan had stood with the queen, tiny glowing vines had begun to sprout, slowly, quietly. Not alien, not human, something between. Life. New life. Days passed, then weeks. Word spread far beyond Earth. Ships came, not with armies, but with gifts, with questions, with peace. Ethan didn't want to lead. He didn't want a title. He just rebuilt his farm, planting rows again, tending to new crops. Vaisha stayed with him, not as a guard, not as a soldier, but as a friend. They spoke less now. They didn't need to. One evening, as stars began to fill the sky, Ethan stood by the fence and looked up. "Do you think there are more of me?" he asked. Vaisha tilted her head. "You mean humans?" "No," he said, smiling. "More seeds." She looked at the sky. "Maybe, or maybe, you were just the first to be seen." He nodded, and from the field, something answered. A soft glow rising from the soil. Tiny vines reaching toward the stars. A sign that the war was over, and something new had begun.